these things are God's word. It takes a huge monumental effort of jettisoning every type of rational thought ever conceived and just tossing it in the garbage. And once you can get someone to do that, then you can convince them that killing someone is okay. That's what the problem is. And that's why I also have issue with John, even though I agree with where he ended up. He ends up at a place that's beautiful, of tolerance and peace and everything. But he starts out with the same premise, I think, as my colleagues, I'm not sure, but I think he starts out with the premise that, yes, these books are all holy books, these are God's words, these guys were great people, and we just misunderstood. Well, if you try to understand about what it says in the books, if you want to understand Moses, unless he was talking to Moses, I guess the only way we could do it would be to look at the Torah, and the Torah is filled with things about killing people and genocide and all types of stuff. If you want to figure out about Muhammad, you have to look at the Quran. Otherwise, how do you know what he said? And if you look at the Quran, you see some violent passages just like Christian scripture. The reason why they went after the Twin Towers, I believe, is, like you said, they wanted to strike at the nerve center of what makes this country tick. And the reason why they did that is because I believe Muslims, fanatics, think that Islam is superior. They have God's word. They've got to be superior. So how is it if they're superior that the United States is the dominant culture? How did that happen? That could only happen if we were living some kind of hedonistic, devil-like lifestyle, and they got to go after us because we make them look bad because they're supposed to be dominant, and now we are. Yes.
Okay. I have a question. Not so much for me, but for my grandchildren. What do you see as a Muslim country teaching their children? I'm not saying you. In our future generations, what are they learning now, as my grandchildren will be learning?
This will be very short. What has happened really is that, yes, there are some schools and madrasas that, again, because of their ignorance, a lot of them do teach anti-American, because you see it on television, they're burning the flag, they get all crazy. But, you know, in recent times, there are a lot of, information and education that is flowing internationally due to television and internet, and people are really getting over that, and they're realizing that all these radicals and all these people, you go to places like Yemen and all these places, they've got a lot of radicals, but you've got a lot of very positive people. A lot of people in the past years and decades who have come to America and London and the West and have studied and are going back to their countries, they are becoming now the political leaders, and they are becoming the principals and the teachers in schools. If you go to Dubai, you would be amazed to know Dubai has more teachers of America and London teaching in their schools than Arabs. And a lot of people now, Arabs themselves, who are coming here in Pakistan and India, and they're educating themselves, they're going back. And a great evidence is, and I'll just end with this, a lot of them don't even want to go back because they know it's corruption there. And that's good evidence to prove that they themselves know that there's a lot of corruption. And then those who go back, they try to eradicate it. So in the near future, I think things will be all right.
Shafayat is very rosy, but kids, when they're learning something and brainwashed, it's kind of hard to get rid of that stuff. And these people are being brainwashed, and we need to challenge it. By the way, who's paying for the madrasas? Do you know?
We are.
We are. Yeah, we are. Every time we buy gas, we are. We're paying for it. Who else? Rebecca. Rebecca brought Rabbi Brody. I got to give her the microphone. She did a great mitzvah. Really good deed.
Okay, I got some questions here. My first question is, who did Abraham offer on the altar as a sacrifice? And my second is, do you accept the present borders of Israel? Do you accept them as they're set right now?
Okay, that's an easy question with Abraham, the son. Muslims believe that Ishmael is the son that he was supposed to sacrifice. He didn't sacrifice, he was supposed to sacrifice. And that's a little biological technicality, because Judaism believes that Isaac is his legal first son. But we all believe, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, that Ishmael was born before Isaac. But Isaac was legal. So if Isaac was legal, legitimate son with Sarah, then he was the first son legally of Abraham. So the Jewish concept, whatever is their reason, I'm not a rabbi, so I can't tell you that. But I know, I'll tell you that the Christians and Jews believe Isaac was his son that the offering was made to. Muslims believe that it's Ishmael. And that's just a technical difference.
But why, what is your view of the Torah? The Torah clearly identifies by name Isaac. It says Isaac. What is your view about that? Did the Torah get it wrong? Was there a mistake made, a misunderstanding? How is it that the Torah became mistaken about that?
Well, you see, that's the whole point why today we have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Because we believe that Jesus was, everybody says that Jesus is a Jew, and Jesus was the rabbi. So if Jesus is a Jew, and Jesus is a rabbi, or was a rabbi, he was teaching Judaism until he was put to death. But if he wasn't put to death, we would not have had Christianity, we'd have had the same Judaism. That's what Islam believes. Then there would not have been a new religion of Christianity if he was not crucified. I'm only telling you the Muslim point of view.
They don't believe that Jesus died on the cross. But how did the Bible get it wrong? Is the Bible wrong?
Well, it's not, I can't say how. I'm just telling you, just for the Muslims have misinterpreted the Quran today and have all these wars and craziness. It's just an interpretation, just as people interpreted that Jesus, let's say, I'm just speaking from the Christian point of view, just how the interpretation was that Jesus was an impostor and he should be killed. He is not the Messiah. And they said, well, they all got it wrong. The Jews all got it wrong, and they started their new religion, Christianity. You gotta understand, it's a whole difference. Me and you can't solve that problem. We can only research the situation. So similarly, there were little differences of opinion on, like Hagar. There is a difference whether Hagar was his real wife or was not his legal wife. Some people say Hagar was just a maid, that he had a relationship and had an illegal child. But then also the Bible and Torah says that God blessed Abraham and he blessed Ishmael. So we say, even though Ishmael will be a wild ass and he will be this and he will be that, the Torah says it, but it does say that he will be a great person, he's blessed, and be great nations. So my point is, if Abraham committed adultery, I don't see how God blessed him and how God would have blessed Ishmael. So it's a little technicality here. Well, it wasn't adultery. Well,
Anyway, answer a second.
so that's, so my bottom line is, I cannot justify that. I can only tell you what I research. You get my point?
Israel's boundaries.
Good. Israel boundaries, I don't even believe there should be any boundaries. I believe that Muslims and Jews should live together, one big land, as all children of Abraham. That's my bottom line. I believe that Jews should not only have a limited boundaries, they should all have the whole place and live together.
You already addressed that way earlier. Does anybody listen?
I believe they should all call it the Holy Land of Jerusalem. Believe me. The place of peace, Jerusalem. Yeah, because Jews were there before. They had the rights of the name. Let's be very honest. Jews were there before.
Go ahead. You got 12 more questions. Okay. Go ahead, Jesse. Go ahead.
Oh, me again?
No, whoever. You go ahead.
As far as this lady's question, you bypassed it completely. I think she was talking about what we see happening in England and in France, where there's violence with Muslims and teachings, and it seems to be expanding almost exponentially in those countries. And wherever Muslims have gone, in Norway and Sweden, we see violence brought in by Muslims in Germany. And these countries seem to be growing worse and worse as far as anti-Semitism, anti-Christianity. And in their mosques, not a few people, not just a few leaders.
No, you are right. But again, that's the same cultural group of people who are coming from the East and the Middle East and coming along here. But what I said is that I hope for the near future that we'll all get that eradicated, because as they come to the West, their children are learning. Look, like a couple of years ago, was it last year, some man killed his daughter in North America somewhere, honor killing. Now, you still have a bunch of these people in London. A lot of Muslims who kill their daughters. If the daughters don't marry whomsoever their parents want them to marry. In London, it's happening. It happened in one or two cases in America. Honor killing. Has nothing to do with Islam. But gradually, all the Muslims started going against these Muslims who do this. So I hope for the near future that these ignorant cultural people who come to the West and practice these things, they will get out gradually. They will get out.
I encourage you to visit the mosques in the United States and you'll see a different type of Islam for the most part. although we need to be vigilant. You'll see that. Yes, the woman back here. Go ahead.
I understand the Orthodox rabbi's ambivalence because I feel the same way. How representative are you of all of the Muslims in the world? I mean, you don't see Jewish terrorists, but you see lots of Muslim terrorists. How representative are you? I understand your interpretation of the Quran is full of love and peace and kindness, but how representative are you?
Let me try to let me respond real briefly, and then feel free to take the mic. I've been to a lot of mosques in the U.S. You walk in there, you'll see pretty friendly people. Now, it is true that some of the mosques have ties with some very violent, dangerous people. And it is true that we need to keep an eye on that. But if you speak to a lot of American Muslims, like Shaikh Shafayat, they don't have an interest in the Middle East war. It's an embarrassment to them. They don't want to get involved in the conflict. They just want to talk about Islam and peace and stuff like that. A lot of the American Muslims are very, very peaceful, wonderful, loving people that you would want to know. And I encourage you to visit. I can't say enough times that the best antidote to the conflict is to visit. And that's why I invite him here all the time. And to hang out and to see. If you go into the Caribbean, like he says, you'll see a different mentality. The political situation in Israel has brought out the violence in the Middle East. But it's not just Israel. Many Muslims throughout the world don't just need Israel as a reason to be violent. They're extremely violent towards each other. And so that's a problem. But you will see that all over. But there was a time in Israel where Jews and Palestinians got along. But the moderates were wiped out and annihilated. Now, for political reasons, you have some very violent people who are left. By the way, one other thing. Rabbi Brody says that he's, this is a first for him, sitting with a Muslim sheikh, and I'm really glad it happened. I hope it happens more. And I invite you back. In the Reform tradition, it's not all that unusual. It doesn't happen every day, but a lot of Reform synagogues mix it up with Muslims, and we do that, and we encourage that. The mentality, as you get closer and closer to fundamentalism, we're right, you're wrong. Our Bible's God's word, and yours isn't. As you get closer and closer down that spectrum, then you're going to hang out less and less with people who have a different view. If you have a view like we have some great things in our Torah and some things that aren't so good, and you got some good things in yours, let's sit around and talk about it and see how we can make the world a better place. As you get more towards that spectrum, then this type of interfaith gathering becomes more and more common, and I hope it continues. Yes?
Remember when we all went to the mosque on Hanukkah?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Our whole congregation has been involved with interfaith activities. I had a bishop from Westgate speak on Yom Kippur, the holiest day. So, yeah, we do that a lot. Not enough, but we do that. Who else? Yes, sir.
Well, a little advice for my Baha'i friend. I think Theodore Roosevelt said it a long time ago. Walk softly, but carry a big stick. That's a famous quote. I feel sorry for the Sheikh because I think his religion has been hijacked. It's not just a few madrasa schools. There's an entire sect in Saudi Arabia called Wahhabis. And they're not preaching the love of the Quran that you are. And they're spreading it, and they're financing it. And I think that they are at war with the rest of the world. So I feel sorry for them.
Just have one comment.
Go ahead.
When she said the word Jewish terrorist, I wanted to laugh and reason it. And I heard that word. When you hear terrorist, it's always Muslim. So it's funny. To me, it's funny.
Not only have the Wahhabis just hijacked Islam and they are at war with the West, but they are at war with a lot of Muslims also. You got the Wahhabis and the Salafis, they are at war with the rest of them. And I will answer your question in the back. The sister in the back. Yeah. We, actually what has happened is that you have these sort of radicals, like some of the Salafis and the Wahhabis. The general majority of Muslims are at war with them. And they are at war with the rest of the Muslim world, not just the West. And just to give you a little bit of satisfaction, the majority of the world of Muslims are very peaceful, but unfortunately Muslims is a very big population, 1.5 billion people. That's why you will hear so much about France and Germany and all over the world. So you'll always hear something. But a lot of the positive, moderate Muslims voices, the scholars all over the world, and there are a lot of very positive sheikhs and Muslims all over the world, you don't really hear their voices, and for some reason the media do not propagate them. I once was criticized for being moderate in interfaith programs, and then I was always asked, are you the very same moderate person? Do you preach that in your mosque? And you know what? That statement guided me to a very, very interesting thing. About 2 years ago, I went live Al-Hikmah TV online. My lectures are broadcasted uncensored as I lecture in Florida. Any Jew, any Christian, from the president goes back, could listen to my speeches, in Saudi Arabia, whoever I criticize, could listen that whatever I tell you here about loving, good, neutral, moderate things, that's the same thing I say in my sermons. It's not that I'm being nice here and I'm a radical in my mosque with only Muslims. Not at all. So the majority of people, there are a lot of people who do have my belief, and I believe like them, but the few who are radical are very vocal. And they get a lot of media coverage. It's like Satan, and I'm going to give you back the mic, Rabbi. I always like to use television as my example. When you tune on the television, the 10 minutes news or the half an hour news, you don't see this kind of gathering. You only see who got an accident and who killed somebody and which person was locked up and who murdered somebody in South Florida and throughout America. You see all the murders, all the crime, all the stealing. You don't see the happy living people and the happy going people. Well, that's what happens in the Muslim world. You always hear, out of all the Muslim presidents in the world, you hear of the madman in Iran. You don't hear of the moderate Muslim lecturers or Muslim. I mean, the president of Trinidad was a Muslim many years ago. Go check it. Have you heard anything about him? He was a Muslim. But you all hear about Ahmad, because he's a crazy guy. So the media propagates him. But you've got many Muslim presidents all over the world. You don't hear about them and their neutral, moderate, liberal voice. You see what I'm saying? So there's no reason to be fearful, but you've got to be vigilant. I myself got to be vigilant. I'm vigilant when I go into some Muslim territories, so I don't blame you for saying that.
Not only that, he's very courageous. He speaks out for Israel, and there's people that don't appreciate that, and I congratulate him and salute him for doing so. Leonard, go ahead. Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much. First of all, I can tell you, in all honesty, you could actually take my pulse right now. It's actually dropped back to normal from before I walked in, so it took about a half hour, but I'm back. No, it's great. It's really great, and again, I don't know who said it before, but you know, the concept of just having a religion hijacked by certain people or certain groups, you know, I think that's a very good characterization, at least for us Americans who are looking at this more as spectators and now maybe seeing the other side. That makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to just address the issue of fundamentalism and Judaism. It came up already 2 or 3 times, specifically with Orthodoxy. First of all, I'm usually the target. Tonight, I guess you are. Usually Orthodoxy gets it. It's like, tonight is you. I'm off the hook tonight. But when it comes to we don't call fundamentalist Judaism, call it traditional Judaism, whatever you'd like to call it. Our tradition dates back, almost 4,000 years. One of the things that has often been forgotten or neglected, and certainly in the last, call it 2 generations, pre-Holocaust, post-Holocaust, until the resurgence once again of people taking a second look at Judaism, is that we always, since the beginning, since day one, have always preached a message of questions. You know, the whole religion is pretty much based on questioning. One thing that I think we can say very proudly about Judaism, it's not a religion which says, this is the law, take it, do it, and don't question. But on the contrary, our entire oral tradition, the Talmud, is a book of questions. Every single thing we do about every single holiday is never to take it and say, this is what I'm doing, and therefore just accept it. But on the contrary, ask questions, challenge, and push and keep pushing. If you can't find an answer, don't give up. Keep challenging. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about it. I think that's why people actually are taking a second look now at Judaism. Why is traditional Judaism the stream that's on the rise? Because people are actually finding a lot of meaning in it, because it's not just spoon-fed and therefore accepted. And it's also not just an easy religion, but on the contrary, I think like most things, you work at something, you appreciate it even more. So for those who have found that light, it's actually very exciting. I'll just tell you, in the Orthodox tradition as well, it's very difficult. We don't encourage, and we certainly don't proselytize. Someone even wants to convert, we say it's not for you. Trust me. You're going to heaven. You have a closer, or just as close. You'll be as close to God as a Jew. Why accept upon yourself all these extra obligations? You just have more reason to fail then if you have more obligations. And I can tell you tomorrow, there's a girl that's converting. This is after about a 3-year process. Someone wants to convert in a traditional sense. Orthodox, about 3 years. And you say, how much is it? 3 years of tuition. There's no money. They don't pay anything. It's just living the life, learning the things. And tomorrow, when this girl, remember, no ulterior motives, can't be for any reason, and just to see that why did she come to Judaism? It's again through her own journey, because she found that whatever was that she was doing before wasn't working. And it's interesting when you ask her what's the reason. It was because of the questions. It's because of the challenges. And I think as the rabbi, as the Jewish teacher, so to speak, one of the things we should always remember is if we are Christian, we are Jewish, we are Muslim, we are Baha'i, whatever it is we might be, we've got to take a look, first and foremost, at our own religion. We're so lucky to be blessed with whatever religion we are born into. And just think, if we were born into another religion, we would hopefully be faithful to that religion. And, just learn to appreciate what it is that we have, and learn to appreciate the beauty of each one of our faiths.
Maybe we could have 2 more, and then each one of us will take 2 minutes, and we'll get out of here. Go ahead, sir, and then Leonard. Leonard always has some great questions.
So the rabbi, the lady mentioned that we've never heard of any Jewish terrorists. If there are any that you know of, could you explain us how the Jewish faith and the people of your faith have learned how to deal with them and quell their efforts to kind of, that could be an example for other religions as well.
I don't know if you want to call it, it's hard to, what's the definition of a terrorist? What's the definition? Is a terrorist a mass killer? So you can't really point to too many Jews that have gone out of their way to blow up a building. We can call a terrorist, or a bus bombing a terrorist. Okay, you could say that the killer of Rabbi was a terrorist. What? The Irgun. You could say that the Irgun was a terrorist organization. Some could say that, some could argue on that. But Joshua ben Nun, Yeshua ben Nun, the Bible. Again, you can say anyone that leads a battle is a terrorist. I don't know. It's a hard question. I've never thought about it before. It's a good question. As far as how would we deal with it, we don't deal favorably with terrorists, Jewish or not Jewish. It goes against everything we believe is a fundamental to life. You gotta fight terrorism. I don't care if you could be the most religious Jew, and if you're doing something, call it an act of terrorism, you deserve whatever that government should mete out against you, and to the full extent of the law. We don't tolerate. Zero tolerance.
I'd like to address that because in many countries, terrorists are celebrated as heroes. Streets are named after them, and their family is set for life. They're given money by terrorist regimes like Saudi Arabia or mass killers or organizations. These people commit terrorist acts because, in the United States, if you want to be provided for your old age, you have a bunch of kids, hope one of them becomes successful, and then they can give you some money and help support you. In the Middle East, if you want to provide for your folks, they train you not to be a doctor or a lawyer, they train you to be a killer. And then if you commit a terrorist act against Israel, you're set for life. Not just for life, for the afterlife. They believe that if you do that, then you get to choose like 72 other people who are going to come in and go to heaven too. So you are a celebrity, you provide for your family. When you have that kind of positive reinforcement, forget about it. What does Judaism do? We do the exact opposite. These people are pariahs. And that's the difference. We don't celebrate mass murders like some people do. We condemn them. And that's why they don't do it. They do it rarely, but in general they don't. Rabin was assassinated because there was a climate, I believe, created by fundamentalist right-wing Jews who were having pictures of Rabin in Nazi garb. We shouldn't forget about that. There was a climate of vilifying him. Why? because he wanted to give up 1 inch of territory to make peace. He was vilified, and climate was created, and indoctrination was created. We Jews also have indoctrination. But terrorism among Jews is very rare, because we celebrate life, not death, because we don't think we have to convert people. As far as the Irgun, Haganah, stuff like that, I believe, and nobody knows all the evidence objectively, I believe that there were terrorist acts committed by Jews in the early days of Israel. But I believe they were extremely rare, and they were condemned, as opposed to terrorist acts committed against Jews, which were approved of and part of a policy. We condemned them. In fact, many of the people like Begin, what I understand is that if he was going to blow up a building, he told people, get the heck out of here. We're blowing this place up. You don't want to be around. We cherish life. It's very, very rare that you'll see something like that happen. And by the way, when the Jews were being annihilated, and 6 million Jews were being slaughtered, and nobody would allow them in, and the United States was sending them back, and other countries were cooperating and collaborating, and England was preventing Jews from having an escape route somewhere to go, they were justified in doing to England what needed to be done so those Jews could be saved. I'm not saying they were justified in killing innocent people, but certainly blowing up a building or doing what needs to be done to allow Jews to have some place to escape. These people were being sent to their death, and there was no place to go. So I don't think that we should even second guess what was going on against England when England was collaborating with allowing these people to die. And so terrorism is extremely rare in Judaism because we repudiate it. And the Muslim world has a problem, I believe, because the terrorists do Islam more damage than they do the rest of us. Because you look at Shaikh Shafayat and other Muslims who are beautiful, wonderful people who are preaching love and peace and justice. He writes about this every day. And he's got to be associated with people who are doing horrible things because they haven't spoken up sufficiently. They have not repudiated them officially. And I have a good understanding of why. I told this story before. My dad was in the hospital. He was about 92 when he had a Palestinian nurse. And she treated him so well, and I invited her to come to my synagogue and speak about what it was like to treat a rabbi. She said, I can't do that. I have family in Palestine. What kind of world is that? Where you can't say that you were nice to somebody because somebody's going to commit a terrorist act and kill your family. There's no hope for peace when that mentality reigns. Go ahead, Leonard. Last question. We'll take a minute. I've already taken my time. You guys can have a minute to wrap up or two, and we'll be out.
Hello. A couple of quick comments, if I could. First of all, a favorable comment for Islam. Judaism and Islam are both monotheistic religions. We only believe in one God. I'm not sure about Baha'i, but I think you said you also believe in one God. It's unlike Christianity, where they have a son and maybe a daughter and whatever else the case may be. It's just one God, and that's very unique. I do have some problems with some of the things you said before, Shaikh. First of all, you said that in Islam, a person can marry a Jewish or a Christian person. Yes, that's true, but no, that's also not true. Because a man in Islam can marry a Jewish woman or a Christian woman who is then converted at the wedding. But a woman is forbidden from marrying a non-Muslim, and that is the fact. In Islam, in the Quran, women are not permitted to marry non-Muslims. Men are. And that's definitely. You also mentioned that Jesus was killed, and in the Quran it said that Jesus was not killed; it was only made to look that way. Yeah, but you didn't really say it that way. But I do respect that you have a more peaceful view than I suppose the average Muslim person does, or maybe the average non-vocal Muslim person does. A comment to the rabbi, you said that people were scared of Islam. I think people are not scared of Islam, we've just had it with Islam. Islam is, for all intents and purposes, except for more moderate Muslims, it is fascism. It is the equivalent of Nazism. There is no difference. There are passages in the Quran, and yes, there's bad passages in Torah, bad passages in the Christian scripture as well. But people don't want that in those religions. We've modified, we've reformed, gone past it. You mentioned that Islam, you're allowed to defend yourself and kill others who attack you, which is very fair. But in Surah 9:39, I believe it is, it says that not only to defend yourself, but to establish Islam as the only religion, and to fight until the last day. And I have the exact surah on my cell phone, if you need the exact surah, which would help out, I suppose. So a religion that says that your religion must be installed upon the entire planet is not a religion of peace. It's the opposite of peace. And that's why I say fascism is the best sense. So you came to our synagogue a few years ago. Thank you for coming again and tolerating my not exactly the nicest sentiments. But at that time I implored you to go out, to make an equivalent of a 1 million man march, to say that terrorism in Islam is wrong, to say that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state, with Jerusalem as its capital, if you can go that far, and to change the minds of those who are influential. In other words, there's a certain amount of people in this election who are going to vote for Romney no matter what. There are a certain amount of people in this election coming up who are going to vote for Obama no matter what. But the reason why you see 10 million ads on TV right now is because there's a couple people in the middle who might feel influenced one way or the other. And it's not the Baha'i responsibility, it's not the Jewish responsibility, it's not the atheist responsibility, it is your responsibility to take your culture and your religion and change it and influence those people who may want to become suicide bombers and never heard the other side of the story. It is your responsibility. You need to do much more than you're doing. And I know you're doing a lot, but you need to do much more, because there is going to come a time, and that is quickly approaching, that the USA and that all the Western world, plus the Eastern world, because Muslims are attacking all over the planet, India, Thailand, Nigeria, Africa, they're attacking all over the planet, where people are just going to say enough is enough, and there's going to be massive war. And that time is coming soon. And we have a right, as Jewish people and as free people, to that war, because that is defense, because we will not surrender to Islam. We will not live under it. You talked for a second about Israel Jews living in a nation that's so big it has no borders. We cannot live in that nation right now because of the way Muslims act right now. We will not be Dhimmis. Does everybody know what a Dhimmi is? Dhimmi is a second-class citizen in Islam. This is part of the law. Tell me if that's wrong. It means that they do not have the same rights as Muslims. Just as women Muslims are one half the voice of a man in court, Dhimmis have even fewer rights. And this is all factual and true from history. So we're not going to have that. We did not surrender to communism. We did not surrender to Nazism, and there's no reason why we should surrender to Islam. So when we demand, say, hey, look, if you're going to build a mosque at Ground Zero, we want a mosque in Mecca. We want a mosque in Muslim land. Excuse me, a church or a temple, a synagogue, in Muslim lands. We want freedom of religion in those lands too. In Pakistan, if you go out and you preach any other religion than Islam, you're against the law. You can face a death penalty for insulting